Science fiction. What is it? And what are its characteristics? Well, let's find out.
What you talking about, Willis?
If one were to embark on a quest of research of what science fiction is and what its characteristics are, it would be quite confusing at times, because the definition and identifiable characteristics of science fiction have always been a point of controversy. According to Damon Knight, science fiction is what we point to when we say it. According to another author, Robert A. Heinlein, a science fiction author, he stated that a handy short definition of almost all science fiction might read, realistic speculation about possible future events based solidly on adequate knowledge of the real world, past and present, and on a thorough understanding of the nature and significance of the scientific method. According to Rob Serling, of Twilight Zone fame, he stated that fantasy is the impossible made out of probable. Science fiction is the improbable made possible. According to Lesser Del Rey, another author, he states that even the devoted aficionado or fan has a hard time trying to explain what science fiction is. So, for the purposes of our lesson at least, I would like to narrow down the list of characteristics to four. Four characteristics that I think will serve us well in the short story science fiction unit. So, let us begin.
Countdown to blast off. Countdown to blast off. Mission control to astronauts. Space travel check. Astronauts ready? Check. We made it to the top. Now sit down in your spacecraft chair, lock in, and ready for countdown to blast off. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off!
So, let's identify the four characteristics of science fiction for the short story unit. Let us begin.
Hello? I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Now, the first characteristic for science fiction I want to discuss is what I call alternate settings. Now, as we probably remember from our Elements of Fiction lesson at the beginning of the year, setting could either denote time or location. Now, in terms of time, within science fiction, a time setting might be in the future, there might be alternative timelines, or in a historical past that contradicts or is different than the known facts of history, or archaeological records. Now, in terms of location, scenes or settings within science fiction texts might be in outer space, other worlds, or even in our world, as in Earth or in our country, but maybe below the Earth, or in locations within Earth that we normally do not visit. The second characteristic of science fiction I want to discuss are otherworldly characters, such as aliens, mutants, androids, robots, or anything else that results from our future interactions with other worlds, or with our own technology evolving to such applications. The next characteristic of science fiction I want to highlight are futuristic and plausible technology in science. Such examples of this might be ray guns, teleportation machines, time machines, computers that are vastly more powerful than the current ones we have, wormholes or the use of them, time travel, faster than light travel, new and innovative communication abilities and applications, and virtually anything that is predicting future results of science and technology. The final characteristic of science fiction I want to discuss with you today is its predictive or prophetic vision for the future. This characteristic is purposely being discussed last because it does intertwine with the other characteristics mentioned. And some characteristics such as alternate settings and future technology in science serve as our examples that science fiction can have a predictive or prophetic nature. Now, this tendency to be predictive can sometimes be fascinating, as in new and innovative technology, or it can be frightening, such as in dystopian societies or bleak settings. Now, what is intriguing is when we review the science fiction of our past and determine which science fiction pieces rightly predicted the current realities. Here are 4 of those examples. The next example, Jules Verne, who lived from 1828 to 1905, who is often considered the father of science fiction, or one of the fathers, I should say, was very interested in science fiction adventures, and he wrote many stories and texts along those lines, and he even stated that the launch site for a future spaceship would be in Florida, and many of the Apollo missions lift off from there today. The next example, from Arthur C. Clarke, who wrote 2001 A Space Odyssey, had his characters reading from electronic papers. And this is the way they gathered their news, which is, if you think about it, not very much different from today's Kindles or what iPads allow us to do. The final example, and probably one of the more famous ones, is from Star Trek, which premiered in 1966. They used a device which they called the communicator, as you can see on the bottom right of the screen, and that is the inspiration for today's cell phones. Now, science fiction doesn't always get it right. That is the nature of predictions, after all. As evidenced by this Back to the Future clip, which shows and predicts that the Chicago Cubs would win the 2015 World Series. As we know, the New York Mets are currently playing the Kansas City Royals, and one of those teams will win. Now, just because a science fiction text or work of art doesn't rightly predict the future, it doesn't necessarily make it not science fiction. Now, I'm hoping for this video that my prediction will be correct in stating that the New York Mets will come back from their 3-1 deficit and win the World Series. Only time will tell. Thank you everyone for watching my video on the characteristics of science fiction. So long now.
To infinity and beyond!
And that's all, folks.